Добрый день еще раз. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, добрый день, уважаемые друзья. Как я вчера и обещала, сегодняшнюю нашу панельную дискуссию мы посвятим двум большим темам.
Dedicated to two serious blocks. First is digital ruble, CFA, also the cashless payments is another subject on the agenda. And as you're aware, all of the blocks have special names like surfing or something else. Here, we did not go down to the invention room. The CFA, digital rubles, cashless payments, digital payments. That's what is the topic on agenda today. Now, please let me introduce my dear colleagues. First of all, this is Maksud Shadayev. This is his birthday today. And on his birthday, Maksud is with us, because certainly it's a very interesting subject. We really want to continue cooperation with the Ministry of Digital Innovations and also using new digital tools. We are counting on colleagues' support. Dear Maksud, I'd like to wish you the best of health and digital success along the way. I hope everyone will support me in that kind wish. Thank you. Yury Denisov, the chairman of the board of Moscow Stock Exchange. Nikolai Zhuravlev is the deputy head of Federation Council. Dmitry Zauers, deputy head of the board Gazprombank. And Vadim Kulik, deputy president at VTB board. And Ekaterina Frolovicheva, general manager of Atomyze. Now, please let me begin with CFA, not the digital ruble. Digital ruble will come as a second block of our agenda. Why CFA? Now, new digital tools are certainly actively perpetrating our lifestyles. We enjoy strong success as an industry at large, but not all of these digital instruments are developing as fast as we'd like to. It's not always related to unwillingness or the regulator. However, the complexity of the products which we tackle first. And we go down along the Q&A road. However, there are not many answers to these questions. If we look at digital currency, everything is changing fast year on year. It's a highly fluid sector. And regarding the digital tools, 3 years ago were considered a magic wand. They never eventuated. So, in terms of developing the fintech market, us as a central bank, as a regulator, we are paying a lot of heed to development of digital assets. We had not only endeavored to develop legislation, introduced amendments, also published the report from CFA to discuss with the market as to how viable our priority vectors of development are. Now, perhaps we have overdone it at times. Perhaps we have overlooked something. We are counting on your support, on your feedback and commentary. On CFA, we created a task force jointly with market players. Part of our panel speakers are on that panel, on that work, on that task force. And by year's end, we are planning to emerge, to enter a number of legislative initiatives to provide for market development. We do believe in this. We think it's a great tool for financial players. My first question is for Ekaterina Frolovicheva from Atomyze. Very amazingly modest lady and a strong professional who wasn't scared to leave the banking industry to a startup. No one had ever issued CFA. It was certainly scary and unclear to become trailblazers. However, Ekaterina was not intimidated. She tackled the creation of a platform for digital financial assets, and also they were the first to register as an operator of operational payment system. Now, Ekaterina, could you please give us some background? Why were you interested in a sector? What were the prospects you saw? What made you take this drastic step in changing your career? What about CFA at large? Is it a hype subject? Is it a new magic wand? Or is it one of the new products that will help us tackle new problems and provide new impetus and opportunities to market players and regulators? Thank you so much for this extensive introduction. Certainly, the experience of stepping away from the corporate sector. I've been in the banking industry since 2019. Now, I'm not a professional banker. I came into banking from IT and then left banking for fintech. And this is a good and this defines well what fintech really is. It is notable that the technological foundation for CFA was the blockchain, and it emerged back in 2016 at FINOPOLIS forum at Kazan, when we saw the first attempts, the first pilots in the banking, in the financial industry of various types of blockchain. We tried many different versions. And then 6 years down the road, we had selected that ripening, maturing technology stage. As you know, 5 to 7 years is the mass adaptation time frame for new tech. And one of the deciding factors in my decision to change sectors was an endeavor to scale it to the financial industry. I realized that a startup in fintech is a huge challenge. However, banking experience certainly does help. It's also important for me to know the pros and cons of the new legislation and opportunities of these financial tools. Well, we're in a unique position. We have unmatched across the world markets regulatory framework. These tools were taken as a separate regulatory subject, and this does provide for certain freedom. I think it's a first advantage. The second advantage is that the programming environment and the ability to provide for various algorithm parameters, interpreting it into issuer logic or products that the issuer would like to launch, leads to a new level of product creation. This shifts a number of automatic preconditions, algorithms, into the programming code. We built the IT DNA integrated into finance, and I think it's a great leap for digitalization of economy. Secondly, I would like to note that programmation or algorithmization of a financial instrument doesn't follow the logic of issuer advantage. Certainly, it provides an issuer ability to do something independently, shifts the balance of power in favor of the issuer. It provides for direct access to the instrument and also disintermediation. Also, now, is there room for growth? Certainly. I'd like to note that we were also first, not only in trying this technology, but we also learned how to improve the customer journey and CFA calculations. and CFA settlements, pardon. Apart from traditional settlement mechanics and payment system based on banking infrastructure, we applied digital ruble settlements. We realized the advantages to that, and I think it's fantastic that we can see now in the financial sector the opportunity for integrating IT practices to create new products which are different to traditional capital markets and securities market instruments and securities. Well, thank you so much. I think that owing to you and a number of other companies, us as a regulator quite quickly came to a decision that CFA needs to be resolved in terms of nominee accounts and taxation. When we came out with first pieces of legislation, nothing happened, and we tried to understand long and hard what the underlying problems were. And you noted, I agree, that the current principles of creating CFA, it's very much like the DeFi business management model, when there is no intermediary and everything is inside your business, and all the players can use the automated tools. However, there are inherent risks to this framework. It's a serious subject as to how, during business development, we can minimize risks, and we are going to certainly continue discussions along that track, because we should certainly note the important points. Now, the new initiative, discussing it with the market, I think it's very important, dear colleagues. You may get acquainted with the report later, but the three key points are, first of all, is excluding taxation arbitrage and improving taxation. It's related to the fact that there are many financial products. But we have to understand, if they're similar in content, we have to use similar approach. And we shouldn't allow arbitrage that will harm instead of help. Second serious block is to how actually to develop CFA platforms, because the higher the number of operators playing the market, then the more serious is the issue of how to make for protected payments and purchases. I'll ask these questions later from Yury. And the third block is debatable. We'd like to discuss it with the market players. Do we or don't we need to define certain approaches in terms of smart contract regulation? Certainly, it seems that smart contracts are a miracle. Everything is integrated, everyone is happy. However, if a person creating this smart contract creates a code, writes a code that will harm the consumers, or even worse, it will affect the financial stability across the board if we're talking about some serious projects. So the smart contract question is certainly non-trivial. However, the technology is unique and must be supported. And that's where we expect specific proposals from market players on where is that area where, on the one hand, we can come up with ideas on how to minimize risk, and on the other hand, smart contracts as a technology, as an emerging tool, will continue developing. Yury, I have a question for you now. In terms of viewpoint of market development on trading CFAs, let me remind you, 3 operators are now registered, 9 registrations are filed. I've been approached by many market players and organizations that would also like, in the nearest, to begin CFA work. So the market is growing. So in your opinion, what is the best way to structure the exchange platforms? Certainly traditional structure is clear, but if speaking of CFA, do we need specific dedicated exchanges, stock exchanges, as for standard traditional products or not? And also, would we be able to stay with exchange platforms? We have dedicated operators who can tackle this role already. Or is it a combination of exchange operators, stock markets, and a combination of other new emerging players? What is your position? Now, thank you very much, Olga. I think it's a vital question. And what can a stock exchange do for CFA? The answer to this is that stock exchange can provide liquidity to these instruments. In recent years, stock exchange has been extensively developing its infrastructure, and we can provide access to 22 million clients in the stock market who enjoy a specific setup. So we enjoy access to all of these clients in terms of CFA. So our job now is to integrate into that product lineup currently existing at the stock exchange, integrate another new product, namely CFA, which will provide the opportunity to all the market players to receive this liquid, timely pricing. And the stock exchange has long been down the road to the correct listing of the securities and correct structure to provide access. So we need to admit all of the clients, not just those who want to buy and hold, but also the speculators. So in terms of access to a large number of investors, we can receive this liquidity. And the second part means that the most important in CFA is performance that we want to see. We'd like access to be wider across the board, and exchange operators have to provide us these additional millions of opportunities that we will be able to create in this market. So it's a lot of liquidity. And certainly key here is to how much we will be able to make it perform. Accounting for the instruments we have and the new additions, I think we will be able to quickly process and launch these new instruments. Ekaterina, do you need the stock exchange? I think you have the clear know-how, understanding on how to do it with exchange operators and brokers. I think it's a very deep and important question. However, please let me try to wear the issue ahead for the moment. Every time I'm approached by the issuer, large, serious organization, they focus on what I can provide. Certainly, I can provide good adjustability, good focus of the tool, develop the interface, make it nice and handy, and say, for instance, I will enter the market of existing clients. But if we look at the numbers, certainly my 3.5 against 22 does pale in comparison. So I am more of an opinion that an issuer coming to us for a programmable product such as CFA should enjoy the opportunity to work with CFA in the existing systems, with existing volume of investors, with existing liquidity that can be worked around. However, if the issuers will be able to make this tool also viable for the traditional stock exchange infrastructure, I think we have to support that, because this is consumer choice and market demand. And so in that relation, I can see a hybrid model as to something to focus on, since the market will definitely tell you, point to the areas of interest, whether this will be in traditional infrastructure or new blockchain. Well, we are of the same opinion, actually. We feel that the hybrid model, both stock exchange, the exchange brokers, whom we call exchange operators, they complement each other mutually, and they shouldn't hinder each other. But the question you're asking is very correct. The stock exchange has to be technologically prepared if they're going to launch CFA trading, and also integrate with the blockchain platforms. Yury, I think you know exactly what you're doing, and you've already embarked down that road. Yes, I agree completely with the colleagues in that hybrid option is more viable. It provides us an opportunity to quickly turn the product around. However, this competition is going to focus on customization. I mean, the improvement of the product. So we're hoping that in early 2023, we're going to hear more colleagues today. We are now working on a deal, a highly important deal in CFA sector, and I hope in a few months it will be announced.
Thank you so much. The same question goes to Dmitry. More than once, Dmitry, we discussed that question with you because Gazprombank wants and plans to become an operator. But what business cases have you chosen? Tell us, please. This is not just the digital ruble, but we're digital financial assets, but what properties we're creating for what products? Tell us a little bit about your product and the consumer properties. Thank you so much for this, your question. And Yury has already announced that. Back in 2021, we launched a pilot project along with the MOEX, Moscow Exchange, which implies that bank is going to issue short-term bonds, the banking ones and the clients ones. And we wanted to do that before the end of 2022. And once the platform, once the site is registered, we'll manage to do that. What preferences we can offer for the issuers, first of all? The regulation which has been developed for the digital financial assets allows to reduce the transactional costs for the issue and to increase the speed. So it means that we will provide access for the bigger number of issuers to such tools, to such instruments, and therefore actually the circulation would be better, the tenor would be better, and the transactional cost would be less. If the regulation remains as it is now, then it means that most of the issuers would get an access to the millions of investors. What preferences it gives to the investors, I do agree with Kate and with Yury that we have to be closer to the exchange and to integrate that with the exchange because we need liquidity and a big deal of stakeholders. And means that if we set up standalone operators, then it means that the market won't be liquid. I don't think it would be popular. End of the day, I think in 5 to 10 years, this platform would merge with the exchange, and there'll be no difference between the distributed register or the exchange, and probably all the bonds would be issued not as conventional securities, but rather as the digital financial assets. So there are lots of preferences for the investors, for the stakeholders, and for the exchanges. Kate said that they tried to launch the digital financial asset along with the digital ruble. Let me say a few words about our whereabouts in terms of the digital ruble. As was announced, since April 2023, we're going to launch a pilot with real transaction with real customers. So we have 15 banks in the pilot project. 10 of them have already developed their digital application and they're testing the client's journey. And at the same time, I have to mention that many banks even would offer some ideas how to make that client journey more convenient, more comfortable, and I'd like to thank them for that. One of the leaders of that pilot path-breaking movement is VTB Bank, and saying that, I would like to pass the floor to Vadim. I have 3 questions, 3 in 1, so to say. First, why VTB really decided to invest money into that project? I understand that VTB has a lot of business projects on its own. When we are communicating to most of the banks, they would say, wait a little bit, once we complete our own business project, so we will embark on the digital ruble, but you did otherwise. You're really spearheading our efforts, and at the booth, you can go and try that. My second question, do you believe that digital ruble is needed, is necessary. We have very good pace of moving to cashless settlements. We have a big deal of the payment instruments. Speaking as a business, when we published the report and the concept, there was no unanimity, and the discussion is still going on. That's why the question arises. As a banker, as a businessman, speaking on behalf of VTB, what preferences digital ruble can offer? And the third question, aren't you afraid of losing liquidity when people being your clients would actually transfer some of the money to the digital wallets? Well, thank you so much. If I may, let me start with the second question, whether digital ruble is needed or not, because this would be helpful in addressing the first question. So once we started investing into that, so probably digital ruble is needed. There was a question about romantic projects, and VTB Bank has no money for that. We cannot afford romantic projects. We invest only where we have to. Why digital ruble is needed? There are three big dimensions to that, three big parts. In terms of the horizon and the time frame, timeline, they are different, but still all of the three are important. Let me start with the first. And my boss already told you that payments, international settlements are important. We need alternative ways, an alternative of SWIFT. I think that you are keeping track for the developments. All the stakeholders are moving in that direction. China, since 2021, is doing that in their real life. You can use the digital renminbi to pay for your fare in metro, so there are more than 20 other applications. India is quite advanced in digitizing their currency. And some of the public-owned, state-owned banks are part of that project. And we are maturing now that China, United Arab Emirates, and Thailand this year, in 2022, started pilot testing for the transfers, C2P, B2B, etc., etc., all types of transfers between the countries, what it means. So this is not something that lies in the remote future, but this is our nearest future. Especially bear in mind that CIS is also home to digital currencies. So the camper-friendly nations surprisingly turned out to be very advanced in promoting and facilitating digital currencies. And this is my bullet point number one. Bullet point number two says that our market is highly competitive. Yesterday, we were told more than once about that, and Sberbank stand up for better competition. But we are very much restricted in the sense that actually the term has reduced to 1 day or 2 days. But we need to obtain some new products, some new preferences. This is exactly what we may offer, and Catherine has already mentioned that. This line with the code offers an opportunity to color these rubles. So it means that we can attach certain features to these rubles so that you could either accumulate that or you could somehow transfer that, following certain features. or science. So it means that we're adding intelligence to the payment unit. And look, how many instruments can be offered by the banking community? Subsidies, for instance. Payment of subsidies. We have different kinds of holidays, banking holidays, subsidized mortgage, targeted payment to the tune of 10,000 rubles to get prepared for school. And if you deep dive into the very structure of these subsidies, you'll see that there are hundreds or even thousands of different types of such subsidies, and they would even differ depending on the region. I'm not sure that anyone sitting here knows exactly the list of those preferences and privileges he or she is entitled to. By no means, because this is very difficult to find ins and outs, and it simplifies the structure of costs for the state, and it makes the system easier for me to comprehend. But at the same time, the banks may offer lots of different instruments. And the third bullet point is about smart contracts. You know, and we're all knowledgeable about these recurring payment instructions, meaning that we're paying every month for electricity, for water, for communal services, utilities, and actually sometimes we pay for inhaling, but we forget to pay for the exhaling. There are lots of mistakes, lots of errors, and every time we upgrade our systems on a daily basis, something may happen to the data. So this is quite regular, on that some part of the algorithm doesn't work. Everything which is related to smart contracts would help us avoiding these deficiencies, these errors. And that means that within that code, using smart contract, we can somehow set parameters that it does work. The utilities payment, that's a very simple case. We can add the letters of credit in the mutual settlements, for instance, and letters of credit issued by a natural person for the sake of a natural person. That's too expensive, but using a digital ruble, it would become cheaper. So it means that the settlement would be done on some conditions. Once you perform something, then immediately the money would be credited on your account. So this is part of the answer why this is very much needed. And the third answer is about the outflow. I had a very interesting discussion when I tried to explain to a layman what a digital ruble is about. And I found it difficult to find some comparison, some analogy. So this is just like you're buying a coin, знание о том, что ты как физик положил, снял деньги со счета и положил. Once you put actually that coin into a cell. So this is only the operator who knows that you have withdrawn your money from the banking account and you put the cash into the cell. No operator could usurp any access to the client because the operator would know that the format has changed. So it's no longer a physical currency, but rather a digital one. That's why the question of usurping the authority and etc. I think that we have resolved that problem, and it's done brilliantly. And all the necessary services have been designed, but still we see an outflow, and we see that regularly. Amid a crisis, regardless of what has happened and whether it is connected with anything, but first thing you do, you actually withdraw the money from your deposit and put it at home, regardless of anything. So this is how our population acts. Statistically, we understand it. How much and during what wave of these fears the people would withdraw money from the accounts, from the deposits, and we know when they're going to bring the money back to the bank. Bank of Russia does not facilitate these interflows. It charges no interests or charges no fee for the withdrawal. So it means that for the natural persons, this is all the same for them to withdraw the money and put that at home and bring that back to the bank. It means that we can streamline these waves. And we can start installing caps to regulate the money supply in terms of how much rubles we're going to issue, digital rubles we're going to issue. So it means that we can introduce certain restrictions, and this is how we can control the situation. Just acting prior in advance of that wave of fears, that would be very useful. We can try these caps, these restrictions at the very first wave. I do believe that this is similar to cash. It happens very regularly, so the economy has not collapsed because of those waves of panics and fears, but still. Thank you so much. That's actually a very good case of a deposit sell, because sometimes we are looking for such simple explanations, and we usually compare that to the paperback money in your wallet, but a cash deposit is even more clear. So, and Bank of Russia remains the main counterparty for the clients. In terms of the clients and limits, Vadim, you are absolutely right. Within the pilot project, we're going to discuss with the pilot stakeholders, and these are the big banks, what cap could be installed. For us, a digital ruble, this is a means of payment for retail in some non-big payments, and it has to be very convenient. And we are not charging interest, and the whole banking processes and banking products remain with the bank. Dmitry, do you agree with what Vadim said, or you have a dissenting view of that? Well, I cannot agree more. But apart from these conventional things, such as smart contracts, we see a big spectrum of products which are non-existent today. I look at Maksut and, for instance, integration with the public services such as mortgage or registration of the real estate. All these things, letters of credit and sales, would sink into oblivion, and there would be more regular clients, juniors. Within the working group, we studied a number of use cases. And, for instance, there is an idea of a peer-to-peer lending. When people lend money to one another, there is no guarantee that the money would be returned, would be repaid, and we can create a product that would act as an assurance, as a guarantee. And we can create lots of other products, something to add to smart contracts. You said that in the very beginning that we have to decide how smart contracts are going to be regulated regarding the digital financial assets and the digital ruble, because this is something that we need. In 2020, I suggested that we have to work on setting up a repository of smart contracts, and 12 banks involved there would be the stakeholders, which would be controlling or overseeing the quality of these smart contracts. And in essence, that would be very cool, a very good platform to set up various products in the market. That's an excellent idea. I think that we will fetch it. Nikolai, my question goes to you as a civil servant. Really, as far as you're responsible for a big deal of the social programs and budgetary payouts,
Вы считаете, что цифровой рубль
Do you think that digital ruble
облегчит эту миссию?
would make your mission easier? And what should be there in the digital ruble that the state could use that conveniently?
С того, что
I'd like to start
Максута Игоревича не может быть много хороших, добрых,
with saying
его огромную работу, поэтому я также присоединяюсь к поздравлениям.
words of gratitude to Maksut for what he did, and happy birthday besides.
Ну, во-первых, я хотел бы сказать, что сроки
First of all,
проекта «Цифровой рубль»
the timeline for digital ruble project set by Bank of Russia along with the colleagues is good. The pace is very good. Within 2 years, we proceeded from the concept to specific pilot project with their specific results. And we know that more advanced, technologically advanced nations spend more time on that. It took 6 years, and there are countries that started doing that from 2015.
Since 2015, but however still had not approached even pilot stages. And overall, everything, central bank, digital ministry, and the government is doing to develop the infrastructure for financial sovereignty is certainly one of the financial sovereignty institutions. I think this is a very serious body of work. A lot has been actually done for settlement infrastructure, in payment systems, fast payment system, stock exchange infrastructure. And this is what, first of all, allows us to withstand the sanctions that have been declared on our country. A lot of these outcomes have also been piloted. And it is good to see that the central bank, in terms of digital ruble, also went through a pilot. You remember very well the long and hard debates, the concerns from the industry side. However, we supported the pilot, and it was a right decision in hindsight. Certainly for our companies today that are working, working also in the DFA segment, lots of prospects are emerging. A lot of big data foreign players have left. However, it could have negatively impacted the competition inside the country. But on the other hand, a large scope of the market, many orders will fall to the Russian domestic companies. And it's good to see that in these circumstances where big business is opening up to our IT companies, owing to our central bank and Ministry of Digital Development, we were able to, in terms of human capital and HR, to protect and provide for growth and development of the industry. Certainly a big thanks goes to the regulators. Certainly DFA market should also aid the development of innovative technologies. But the key here is not to allow any uncontrolled risks. There should be certainly a balance of interests adhered to those investing into this type of project, and also investors in digital financial assets, consumers of financial services, and also to provide financial stability. Now, over to the advantages of digital ruble. We were told, we were described in detail the concept of control, regulatory angles. It will provide a lot more control and better management for various government payments, pensions, and for instance, investing into what the government is doing on part of social treasury is important, but it's important that subsidies and support exist not only for citizens, but also for business and for the business, such as one-off payments, taxation breaks, and other initiatives make a digital ruble enjoy a lot of support. Also, a well-balanced tariff policy we are proposing is important. There was a precedent with the fast payment system, and thanks to the tough position of central bank, the tariffs were quite reasonable. On the one hand, allowing to protect the balance of interest between financial organizations, the players in that sector that certainly have to work at profit, and also consumers' interest that shouldn't pay over excessive tariffs. I think this approach should also be the same. It was with surprise and interest that I learned that digital ruble is going to be able to be used without internet access, without online access. Yes, that's what we are planning. Certainly, this project will also need to be debated, discussed in terms of technical implementation, also the risks seen by financial organizations. It's also an issue that will remain to be researched as part of this work. Thank you so much. Now, dear Maksud, I have a birthday present for you. I think you won't be able to refuse Central Bank. We'd like to invite the Ministry of Digital Development into the digital ruble project so we can provide for various digital services with payment in digital rubles. Do you agree? Yes, certainly. Thank you so much. Can I go now? No, I have many questions for you yet. And certainly, if we begin this joint work sooner, then next year we'll be able to see some pilots emerging. Now, dear colleagues, no matter how much we speak of digital ruble, it has not yet been issued. So let me break the decorum by saying that when we discussed the digital ruble, we had proposals that digital ruble had to be launched simultaneously with private digital money or tokenized cashless payments. Digital ruble won't be able to survive alone without this. There are certain points that we are focusing on. It can be tackled in various ways. However, this discussion is yet ongoing. It's far from over. Since the platform Digital Ruble did not provide for replacing the commercial banking activity, this is infrastructure for retail payments to a certain limit. We heard from the Federation Council, I think we'll make peer-to-peer transfers free and for B2B not more expensive than the fast payment system. Then certainly the money has to be stored at the bank, and individuals and businesses, once they're able to receive some social payments, they'd like to leave them on deposit. So this means that digital rubles have to be passed on to a commercial bank. Commercial banks have to accept this, but most importantly, they have to preserve this individual unique number, as that's part of the ruble's token, that can help us track this ruble further. Then the ruble can go to Bank B, Bank C, and this unique identifier, this number, has to be able to be tracked across the system. And then when the regulator says, please provide us the statements, we can provide the full story, the full life cycle tracking of this digital ruble. One of the positions of market players was based on the fact that we first had to introduce some private digital money. VTB Bank, Gazprombank issues own, and then we come up with certain rules framework. And the second idea was to tokenize cashless assets from the banks, digital assets, and then apply a framework for a digital identifier where the banks can track this number by passing it through the financial chain. And I'd like to ask the colleagues as to their viewpoint on this. This is not an empty question. Attributes and tracking should also be resolved at the digital ruble level. Otherwise, the digital ruble and its advantages that we now see won't work. So how do you view the solution to this? Do we need private banking, digital assets, or cashless payments? Vadim, first. Olga, thank you. I think this question is for warm-up of the audience before we end our event. Now,
предложении и в этом споре, значит, как, собственно, должен жить цифровой рубль при переходе в обычный.
So, speaking of the life cycle of the digital ruble with transfers and tracking, I think it's
творчески прикрывает всего лишь одну дискуссию и борьбу двух, так сказать, монополистов.
It's down to monopolies, and it's down to who is the issuer and who controls the market. It's about who is the central issuer. It seems to me that the registration of RF provided for the definition of the issuing center, and the dispute was focused on who should create the platform. No central bank, certainly. Then we wanted to tokenize digital rubles in our accounts. And now the question is, can we preserve this digital ruble when it is transferred from one of its shapes or forms? Now, we spoke about this early on, and we said that while we are waiting for the digital ruble, as an intermediate step, let's tokenize these cashless rubles on account, and then try something new. Then, by the way, we already have digital ruble, and we're still continuing discussing tokenization. Why do we continue discussing this intermediate step if the final one is ready? It isn't clear to me. As for the symbols, if we consider this as a coded message, then I need to call my processing system to identify it, to track it, and transfer it to the next player down the chain. Certainly, it sounds scary to recognize attributes, process it, and then track it in transfer. But certainly we can achieve that goal. And that's the road I would take. I couldn't identify the remaining area for debating. Now, question, do we need private digital money? Frankly, I don't understand what you mean by that. You mean some form of loans? Stable coins a bank is using that works inside that bank. But then many different ecosystems will have the same tokens. And speaking of investments, they have to be justified. Now, what will this idea with blockchain settlements provide? First of all, safety and tracking, improving the security and safety. So if this provides digital ruble, why do we need to invest into a second platform? Even at our VTB group, So how can I come to the board and say I want X billion rubles to create VTB coin? I don't have a business case for that.
То есть я не понимаю, как я эти деньги оправдаю.
Дмитрий,
Я
у
этого
вас
даже
есть
не вижу.
бизнес-кейс?
Dmitry, do you have a business case? No, I don't.
Я бы добавил, наверное, к тому, что Вадим сказал, следует...
I would add to what Vadim has noted that even if we hadn't had a digital ruble, let's suppose so, as a project that is being launched, it's a very strange discussion to create few various platforms to duplicate investments, to create integrational mechanisms, an API between this, raise transactional costs. It doesn't make sense. And if we suppose that digital ruble exists, then this unwieldy structure certainly has to be justified financially, and for market players it is certainly doubtful. Now, we discussed it on the sidelines and debated at length. So when you have a normal digital ruble and your rubles on account, you have certain advantages in both cases. Why do you want to create something that will duplicate the functions? Now, I think this discussion can be wrapped up in this wider context because the ruble is being launched. Do I understand correctly that the banks are ready, that the unique identifier will be recognized, identified, and this will provide for thorough tracking as part of the system? Yes. Yes, thank you. So now, I will ask a question of Katya. I have another one. So, as a platform operator on DFA, would it be enough with settlements of digital ruble and the current instruments? Are they enough? You mean to organize seamless processes, transfers, the whole point why you created the DFA operator platform? I'm afraid I can say that the mechanics that are now provided for retail clients to be able to, in real time, transfer money, digital currencies, this can be quite sufficient. So this is a nominee account. This can be settlements through digital wallet for digital ruble, and this can also be acquiring card. The whole tree of these mechanisms can be supported, can support money versus DFA. And we can also record whether you need to improve something else and transform it, expand it, scale it for customer benefit. Now, I'm now speaking from the operator viewpoint in terms of the system territory. If we need cross-border interaction, I think this can be implemented, including using similar mechanics or using technological basis that was mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of cross-border transfers, colleagues did mention that, and digital ruble can be viewed as a new tool for creation a new international settlement payment system where we could integrate with like systems which could provide huge benefit to everyone. But this issue, this project cannot be tackled without due identification and identifiers. I have a question for Maksud, and certainly also a proposal. Digital maturity of financial markets, the level of digital maturity of the government as well, is at a stage where we as a country are able to review what is the digital framework architecture that should exist. How can we interact, how can we interconnect all of financial, commercial services, payments seamlessly and integrate with international players? First of all, what is your position on the idea? I'd like to implement it next year. What is your position that on state services website identifier connected to the digital currency? A market has debated it at length, and it's a necessity because no matter what the DFA we do, if we don't have thorough pass-through identification, ID identifier is the key tool. The rest remains not fully developed. And this was my first question. However, the second question is, yesterday we heatedly discussed, debated the open finance, open IT hub at the financial market. There was a report. We wanted to shift from open finance to open data. But the players from my session yesterday, I've been approached by many people from the audience, said that as a country, certainly we're not at bottom levels of open banking. Certainly open finance concept is better, but it is probable it would be better to shift from open finance into open data, at least for the largest players, to define standards and using this data, make it compulsory in terms of regulation. This will provide a new quality, a new impetus for development. So these two questions, identifier and open data. What are the solutions? Thank you very much, Olga. You are raising serious systemic issues often, and generally the whole identifier system the government is building using the government services website has a lot of penetration.
This week, for instance, we have more than 100 million of authorized users at Gosuslugi, and most of them were confirmed by the banks. These were the online banking clients. And the seamlessness when the user, when getting registered at Gosuslugi, has to confirm his account, doesn't have to go anywhere physically. And initially, the banks would be perceived by us as a very serious institution used to authenticate the signature. And we are following you. But we are doomed to interact more closely. I do think that yesterday you discussed the whole system of interaction. The only model between the stakeholders and Gosuslugi were the public services. This is done through banks. When our users, when obtaining some banking products and insurance services, may seamlessly render to the banks their data. Certainly, this reduces the cost, and something that we are going to elaborate on. The state needs a unified system of safe and secure identification, which would be easy to get access to, and cooperation with the banks. This is the main factor behind the success. We are interdependent. All your super projects have to rest on very reliable, safe, but at the same time simple system of identification. Commercial ID is something that we have to discuss more, because in the client journey, the convenience and the safety and security, these are the two issues that are our top priority. As for the API is concerned, we welcome that. We actually act through SMEF, and the banks increase our load, so they transfer information about the penalties and fines being paid. In that sense, we are interested in piloting more high-tech ways of interaction. Proceeding from the yesterday discussion today, we are not building our system only for ourselves. We do that in close interaction with the banks, with the economy, and you are our clients, and the banks are our clients. We have to provide for the seamless shift from one system to another for the users. So this is our common objective. I think that we will obtain necessary technological solutions and the options how to meet all the requirements. Well, but at the same time, when speaking about open data, we have to obtain necessary consent platform. As Bank of Russia, we developed a concept, how we see that. I know that several times you said that you have some vision that the commercial consent platform has to be set up. We have a consent platform in the digital account, but this is related to the state services or public services, but we don't have any commercial platforms to this end. That's a very difficult task, and technologically it won't be easy, because this is a very serious platform of national level. But I think that we have to do that correctly from the very outset, and it has to be done all together, not that the Ministry of Digital does its own piece and then the Bank of Russia does its own piece, and on the way we would lose some data. But there has to be one platform built all together that would ensure that we can launch open data. Then all the consents would be stored there. There would be a person who would monitor that, and we would understand what digital footprints we are leaving. Are you ready to join us for that project? Yes, certainly we do. And besides, we are reshaping the system for processing the whole system of e-government. We'd like to minimize storage of data in-house. And we follow a concept that the ministries would have kind of shop windows, and the bulk of the data would be stored somewhere else. And consent, this is something that we're going to keep with the Gosuslugi. So will you make an appointment for the next week so that we could develop such an architecture? I understand it, probably not tomorrow, but next week. Well, you're always welcome, you know. Colleagues, yesterday, in essence, when me and my panelists, we discussed the digital platforms following the results of that discussion, we identified 7 objectives. FINOPOLIS not only gives an opportunity to talk, to communicate, but it sets some specific tasks, something that we have to address in the nearest future. Let me remind you of these 7 tasks. And Mr. Shadaev, most of these tasks are referred to you, to your ministry, but the commercial stakeholders said that they're going to oversee what we're doing, because that's very important for them to see them fulfilled. First of all, this is about ID, end-to-end ID, something that we have discussed. The second objective, EBS development. We actually are doing some reloading, rebooting. Then open data. Number 4. Consent platform, I keep looking at you because you are my account agent for doing that. Number 5, digital profile of a legal entity. Number 6, signature platform has to be more client-driven, and one objective for us, for the Bank of Russia, to go on developing the digital financial assets.
И вы знаете, я должна сказать, что их придется.
I must say that we will have to take them all at once, not one by one. I'm very much surprised. On the second day of the forum, the room would be half empty, but now it is sold out, and I'm shocked that actually I've arrived at the forum and the takeaway is 6 objectives, 6 tasks. We are ready to help you. Well, I totally agree, but actually you're moving us forward. You're urging us to move forward with your requests. You don't let grass grow under our feet. Thank you, thank you. We are completing our discussion, and To conclude, I would like to give 1 minute to every panelist. Do we have enough tasks, me and Mr. Shadaev? 6+1, is it enough? Where you want to give more instructions? Dmitry, let's start with you. Well, can we instruct you as well? So that we instruct you? No, vice versa. So there are 7 objectives that we're facing. Well, you keep instructing us and giving us headache. But jokes aside, if we think about a longer-term horizon, we showed to you our quantum booth to you and Ms. Nabiulina. If next year we try to convert quantum cryptography into Ruble, then probably in a couple of years now, the Ruble won't be digital, but would be quantum. So this is my objective and something you can help us with. So this is objective number 8. Vadim? No, I'd like to avoid any instructions. I will not add anything.
Пожалуйста, Николай.
Nicholas.
Well,
you put forward some objectives to you and to Mr. Maksudov, but anyway, you will approach us. So you must welcome. I'm ready to help you. This is when we're going to discuss that. Catherine? Well, that's more than enough for me. And see you next year. Well, I'm very much for that. Mr. Shadaev, are you with me? So let's work together a month and a half this year and 12 months next year. So 13.5 months until the next FINOPOLIS. No, until the next year. Okay, pretty much time we have. I like very much open data goal, and we tie our hopes to that, and we are ready to do some piece of that job. Well, but I can conclude that session with facing only our objectives. Dear banks, may I have your attention? There is only one goal, not 7, not 8 goals that I put forward to you. You have to automate unique IDs and attributes when converting digital ruble into cashless settlements by April 2023. So our timeline is quite good. Thank you so much. Certainly, yes. Thank you so much. I hope that the plans, which look very ambitiously, but which are very much needed, would come true. Thank you so much, and I wish you every success.